Okay, good evening, everybody. So we're on our final lesson of this series on abstract landscapes. We've done absolutely tons of stuff, as you know, and we're going to finish off by finishing off, but also I discovered a few more techniques to do with jelly plate printing that I'm going to show you. Well, actually one main one and one that I haven't yet tried myself, so I'm going to try that tonight in front of you. So the first one involves the main one involves using cardboard or Mountboard. And if you've ever heard of something called Collagraph, it's a little bit like that, in that with the Mountboard has a layer of paper on top, which you can peel away if you cut certain areas out. And then you can actually you can make a design from it and then apply that to the wet paint on a jelly plate to create a print. I tried one out, just a little one, this afternoon, and it seemed to work very well. So I'm going to show you how I did that, so that, you know, if you don't get around to it today, you've got something to try out during the summer before we come back in September to do our next classes. Okay, so we'll go and have a look at the wall just to remind us of what we've been doing. So you'll remember me last week, I showed you how you can transfer a photograph from a jelly plate onto a piece of paper, and you get all these kind of lovely worn effects on here. So I had mixed results with it, but I suspect there's a few things that I was missing out, such as maybe my print plate wasn't as clean as it should be, or maybe I didn't leave the paint to dry quite long enough. Even so, I was quite pleased with these two prints and a couple of the others that I showed you before as well. They have this kind of rustic effect to them, or this torn and worn effect, a bit like an old poster and so forth. So at the art class in Raunds, a few people had a really successful couple of pulls of prints, and if you remember, these have to be done from really good quality magazines, or indeed laser copies as well, just because of the type of inks that are used. So anyway, I'll show you what I did today in preparation for today's class. So you get a piece of Mountboard basically, and what you can do with that is you can cut away certain areas of the paper that you find on top of Mountboard. So this is all the Mountboard I had, but if I get right in close here, you can see where I've been cutting away. I've also I drew the tree onto this block of Mountboard first of all, and then I drew into it quite heavily with a pen, so you can see all the dark pen marks. Now the interesting thing is, because you've indented the surface of the paper, those marks will come out too. And then you can see the sort of fuzzy areas are where I've removed the paper using a scalpel blade. So the highest areas on this plate will be the lightest, and the lowest areas on the plate, the recessed areas, are going to be the darkest. So the fluffy areas, after I've pulled away the paper from the top of the Mountboard, is going to have a tone, sort of a fuzzy tone to it. And then you'll notice as well, right in the middle there, I'll just zoom in, you'll notice just here, look, I've cut away like a leaf shape and a sort of curvy shape from maybe another branch or something. Those are going to come out the darkest, because basically when you put it onto the gel plate, the jelly itself doesn't quite make contact as well as it does with the paper that's left over on the tree. Okay, so I've tried to explain that as clearly as I possibly can, but obviously it's down to experience and experimenting. So I'm just going to show you, you can see the prints over there on the side. I'll zoom into those in a second. So what I've got a picture here of the plate once it's been cut, once it's been printed, sorry. So let's get that one up. So you don't roll any ink onto the surface of the plate. That's all just like normal. You roll it onto the surface of the jelly plate, and then you place your tree or whatever it is you've done onto the top of the jelly, pull it away after applying a little bit of pressure, and you end up with an imprint very similar to what you do with a photograph, only this time we're using cardboard. So I did, because I had room on my plate, I did 3 different prints. So let's see if I can grab hold of that. I'm just trying to see where I've put it. Is that it? Yep. There we go. Right, so let's get in a bit closer. Move it up to the top. Right up to the top. There we go. So there's 3 different prints. The first one in the center is the print that I did, the initial print. So you can see here that the lightest areas are in fact the tree, because the jelly plate has obviously been had the acrylic paint pulled off of the paper area, okay, onto the plate, that is. And then you can see the little leaf that I mentioned earlier is the darkest area because it was receded the most. In other words, not as much paint can be picked up from there. Okay, and the other interesting thing is the biro marks that I did on the tree have also been picked up. Some were harder than others, but we've managed to get a print out of that. Now, I didn't bother to clean the plate or anything. I just thought, I haven't done this before, I'm going to try it out. So the one on the left is the second print, and the one on the right is the third print. Obviously, I'm happiest, or not obviously, but I'm happiest with the one in the middle. So I saw this on the internet earlier. I think it was today or yesterday, or early in the week, I can't remember. But I saw this and I thought this would be a really nice technique to finish off with this evening with this course. So I'm going to show you now what I did on my desktop area. Here we go. There we go. Ooh, get some focus here. There we go. Right, so these are obviously the ones we did before. So just to recap on what we've done with these jelly plates, this was a mono print, so straight printing off of textured surfaces, then repainting it. This was from a jelly plate print and then repainted. And this one was a collage of different prints put together and some background textures to build it up, and then I painted the tree in. Last week, for one of the techniques we did, I printed using charcoal, if you remember. So I drew a charcoal drawing on a piece of paper, transferred it onto the jelly plate, pulled off the lines, then applied paint over the top and pulled that off as a print as well. So we've done quite a few different things. That was just a really quick recap. Here's the prints that I did. Oh gosh, I've gone out of focus again. I don't know why that's happening. Right, so here we go then. We've got this is the plate just here. I'll try and get in a bit closer actually so we can see what we've got. That's a little bit better. Okay, just trying to sort this camera out. There we go. All right, so yeah, so this is what I ended up with, and this is the print. Here's a bit of cardboard of a similar sort of size. So I'll just do a few little bits just to explain how it works. So first of all, you know, you're going to, I'll show you what I'm doing in a few minutes. I'm working from a photograph of a tree, and so I'm just drawing in a really quick, simple sort of tree shape here, just to sort of show you what I'm doing, explain the technique a little bit. So we can draw that out like that. And the next thing to do is to use a biro pen to draw in. I've got a green one here for some reason. So if you press down quite hard, you can draw those lines in. Just see if I can get a little bit more closer actually, because that's a bit far away for me. Okay, that's a bit better. Okay, so we can put in lots of lines. So I'm pressing down quite hard here, so you can add all sorts of mark making in, and some of those lines are going to be picked up. I'm sure I could do better than I did on the last print, that's for sure, with a bit of practice and things. So you go around the edges of things quite heavily, and that makes an indent into the surface of the paper that is on top of the mount board. So the mount board, it has this layer of paper here and ordinary kind of stiff card underneath. So the next thing you can do with that is start to cut out some of the areas you can see here. So I'm going to just cut a few of these away so that you can see how that works. So I've got a little scalpel blade here, quite sharp. If it's not very sharp, it's a little bit harder to do, of course. And then you pick the edge off and you can just pull that paper away. And so now I've got an area here which has kind of a fluffy texture that I showed you before. I'm just trying to put it in a better light and just about see it there. There's a little bit of fluff there, and there's the smoothness of the tree just here as well. And so you cut away all the bits that you would like to be a bit darker. Now, if you find that a little bit difficult to visualize, what I suggest you could do is sketch out your design first of all, working out where the lights and the darks are, or the midtones perhaps, so that then you've got an idea of which bits you're going to be cutting away. So I'm just adding a bit more detail in these shapes that are drawn out. Oop. There we go. So they just sort of peel off like that. So that's the paper from the top of the surface of the mount board. Now, to make areas really dark, this area here is cut out. To make those areas even darker, or even just to add in some darker details. So if we look at the print, like this area here is cut even further in than the paper. So, and the fluffy board underneath. So if I go around it like this and cut out another shape, you won't be able to see it very well on the screen, but I've just sort of gouged out a deeper section in the mount board like that. And basically, because when you put it on the Gelli plate, the ink won't be picked up in those darker areas and will be left on the Gelli plate, therefore leaving darker areas on your design. And if you have a go at that, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Right, so you can see that now. Can you see that there? So I've just gouged out some leafy shapes from this area just here. And of course you can also cut some extra details from the inside of the object that you're looking at. So just pick that out of there, peel it off like that. Now what I won't do is I won't print this one because I haven't got that far with it, but one interesting thing I'd like to do is see if I can get another print out of the former one that I did. So they're like this. My wife said it's a bit like a little bookmark actually. So I don't think it will come out as well as the last print, but we'll see how it works. Okay, so I've just drawn in a few more lines. One thing that worked quite well was doing dots, because with the point of the pen you can push in quite a long way. So a bit of stippling quite good as well with this. Okay, so I'm going to get my Gelli plate just here. I'm going to roll some ink on and see how well this transfers for another design. So I'm going to zoom back out again so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. So there's my little print plate. Now, the other thing that I wanted to have a go at tonight is, and I know this isn't a landscape again, but it was just something I had lying around and I thought, let's see what happens. So this is a piece of lino here, and I've carved into it many years ago this frog shape. So we've got relief areas that are high up, and the areas that are carved out are much lower. So potentially I could make a print of this frog on the Gelli plate and transfer it a bit later. So let's have a go at both of these things. And perhaps if you've got some of these things, or even just some card that you can carve into, we might be able to get an interesting print from it. And the nice thing about doing the carving into the Mountboard is you've got a lot of control over how and what you create on that Mountboard. So you could potentially create a really beautiful abstract landscape design that you can then print a few times using this technique. So there's a nice layer of brown paint. So first of all, here we go. We are going to put the bookmark, I'm going to call it a bookmark, it's a tree bookmark thingy. So the demonstration that I saw, person there managed to get a few different prints out of it. It's still a mono print because each design, or a single print, because each design or each time you print it, it's gonna come out slightly different to the last one. So I'm still calling it a mono print. There we go. Let's just have a look, see what's happening. Yep, that's not too bad. I'll zoom into it in a minute. And secondly, we're going to try and print with a piece of lino our frog. So again, apply a little bit of pressure and we'll see how that works. And peel that off. Oh, yep. Yes. There's what I pulled off. So and every surface that is a little bit higher actually gets pulled off onto the surface of whatever you're putting down. So on here, oh, not on that one, we've got lots of brown on there now, you see. And on here, we've got lots of brown paint on the area that the frog was on and not on the areas that I'd carved away. Okay, so I'll need to clean that later because, as you know, acrylic dries and you need to quite quickly and hard. So I'll need to make sure, if I want to use that lino again, that I clean it off. Now I'm just going to get a piece of paper. I've just realised I haven't got some. Hold on. So this afternoon, what I did is I let this dry and then I applied another colour over the top, which was white actually, which is why I only had a black and white image. But I'm just gonna print this one on a very thin piece of paper. This is just normal photocopy paper now. So I use the roller on the back. I think what I will do is I will give it a little bit of time to dry off, and I will reveal it in a little while. Now, a little trick that I've seen people do quite a lot of is leave it with a book on top as well. So here's a couple of sketchbooks just to weight it down. I was going to peel it straight off, but I just thought let's weight it down. So you weight it down like that so that there's an even amount of pressure applied onto the jelly plate. And then when it's dry, after about 15 minutes or so, you can peel it off and see what results you've got. So I'm going to leave that a minute and we'll come back to it. And in the meantime, I'll show you what I am going to be working on tonight. So I got this picture of a tree here and I loosely sketched it out. Just sit down so I can show you a bit clearer. So I've sketched out a drawing of this tree here, and I'm going to use the biro pen to put loads of mark making in, and then I'm going to start cutting away the negative shapes. So the negative shapes being the ones behind the tree here. I could cut out some of the negative shapes from the branches, from the texture on here, or I could just leave them as a drawn line in there. Okay, so I'm going to be working on this first of all. So we've done quite a lot of techniques over the last few weeks. So if you're still working on something else, then please keep going with it, because it's good to take your time doing all of these different techniques and so forth. Oh, there I am. All right. So here we go. We're continuing with working on this tree piece of work, this tree kind of collagraph, I guess it is. But so you can see here what I'm doing at the removed some of the paper. You can also continue carving into it. So you can see from the print over there on the right that we've got some particularly darker areas on there, which are you saw me doing earlier onto the gel plate. And I talked a little bit here about how some printmakers using jelly plates will turn it over and actually pull away using the gel plate as the bit to pull. So I'm not sure if that's just for show or it makes it easier, but it's quite obviously very satisfying once you pull it off. So we can see here that I've managed to get quite a good impression of this little frog lino print that I did a long time ago. So yes, you can use lino, the relief part of the lino, to create a print from your jelly plate as well. So the other thing to remember, of course, is that this will be in reverse to what you would do with a lino print, and that's purely because we're lifting off from the raised areas rather than printing off from the raised areas or the relief areas of your lino. So what you could do from here is you could work into this with some acrylic or some watercolour. So you still get the lines coming through the transparency of the watercolour. Another trick you could do is once you've transferred directly onto the wet paint or onto the jelly plate with the acrylic, you can also let that dry for 15-20 minutes and then go back and start to paint the back of the frog or whatever it is you're doing to add some colours, because obviously the first layer of colour is the lino itself. The next layer would be the colour, and then once that's dry you can pull off a print from that, perhaps using some of the matte gel medium. So have a go at that anyway. There's, as I said, there's so many different techniques on the internet now that you can see people using these jelly plates to create different effects. And this is obviously me trying out a few ideas here. So I'm still carving out, obviously, this tree here, pulling out the different areas. Now I just needed to get on with pulling the paper off, but you know, you could, in actual fact, which is what I did with the one on the screen here, the print on the screen, is I did everything, including the biro and all the other techniques. So once I've finished cutting away all these areas, you'll see me start to work back into it with a biro, and applying quite a lot of pressure to emboss the biro itself, or to emboss the cardboard itself, I should say. And then it's quite nice. You can see on the screen here, the print that I did, you can see that a lot of lines will actually appear as a print, because the embossed areas obviously don't pick up the paint from the jelly plate, unlike the tree trunk and so forth. So you end up with these lovely like scribbly marks and dashes and everything else. So I'm just generally going over it. I'm experimenting again, using stippling and so forth. This was me using some gel medium. I haven't put this print on the video, but again, I was just experimenting with using matte medium, and matte medium is the one you want to use, not the glossy, because it seems to print off much better. And the thing about the gel medium, of course, as well, is it's transparent rather than a coloured acrylic. So putting in plenty of these different marks. I was stabbing it with my brush as well, with my pen as well. And then in just a short moment we start to actually try print out. Okay, so continuing on with more mark making, lots of dashes, dots, and I tried to put a few circles in here and a few scribbles and so forth. And then there's a scribble going in. Again, some more dots, stipples. So now we've got our print plate ready. The next stage is, so you can see me here with, so I'm just using a random colour here really, because it was nearing the end part of the lesson. So you can see me here with the excess acrylic. I'm just rolling it onto the paper on my desk, so it's just a bit of newsprint on the table to make a nice even surface. Then we put the tree print plate on, bit of rub, and then peel it off, and we've got not too bad a print. I think there was a few patches on there that ordinarily I might have neatened up before transferring, but quite good result. We've got a very clear outline of the branches. The tree trunk, there's a few patches of dark colour or colour that didn't quite transfer, but that's okay. For this experiment, it's good stuff. We can see how it all works. So in just a second or two, we'll see the ink has been rolled on the surface, and I've placed over some cartridge paper onto the top there. I'm just using a roller to make it create good contact, and it's not long really before I actually pull this print off. I do put the books on. Got the A4 sketchbook on, another book and another sketchbook over that. So I just leave that for a few minutes before I actually pull the print off. So books going away. So this was about 5, maybe 10 minutes later, and we can just see how the print is adhered quite well. I remember to turn it upside down so that you can see the print on the Gelli plate, and hopefully we can see how it transfers it, or at least that's what I was thinking at the time. So our little Collagraph plate has translated really nicely onto the paper. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can paint the back of the Gelli after you've transferred the Collagraph cardboard, but in this case I've just done it in white. So there we've got some really nice scribbly lines and circles, so it's actually worked really nicely. And then we've got the soft sort of marks in the back and the really dark areas that I carved out, and the branches or leaves or whatever. But some of those areas a little bit, so it's a shame that those areas didn't quite come out, but I did spot them before. I could have neatened them up if I'd had time. We got some really lovely results with this. So get hold of some Mountboard, have a little experiment with it, because it seems very simple and very kind of versatile as far as creating something like this goes. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed exploring Gelli plate printing, and there seems to be endless possibilities with it. So if you get yourself one of these things, make sure you have lots of fun exploring and experimenting with it, and then maybe creating some pieces of work that you're really happy with as well. And if you can, share them with me, because I'd love to see how you get on with those. And don't forget to like and subscribe and all those sort of things that we do here on YouTube. And our next classes start in September, on September the 11th 2025. So if you're interested in coming, please look me up on the profile there and book yourself in. It'd be lovely to see you. Bye for now. Have a great summer.